Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed. We've got the second part of our June Q&A coming right up. Plenty of other questions to answer, so let's get straight into it.
Okay, next question. Do the Hardware Unboxed team have, or are the computers that we use for our day-to-day use as good as the ones we sort of feature on the channel? So with custom water cooling and all that fancy stuff. Well, yes, I would say.
Yeah.
Basically, I did what was it? The Thermaltake Core P3. I did a custom loop in that. And that was my Core i7-6950X system, which I replaced last year with Threadripper 1950X. And I didn't actually build that on the channel because lazy. But Tim and I both want to upgrade to the 32-core Threadripper. So we're going to be hounding AMD for a pair of those chips. Try and get the creation board from MSI. And we might do like a live stream where we both build our dream editing rigs. So that'd be cool. But yeah, so our systems aren't sort of run down, dusty old things that are left in the corner. And
no, we keep them updated.
So yeah, bit of fun. So you just built second gen Ryzen?
Yeah, I've got a few test systems for second gen. I'm still using first gen on my main editing rig, but it's pretty similar.
We're getting too up to speed.
But I have a Titan X in my system, a Pascal Titan X. So again, it's we like to use a lot of high end hardware for our editing and that sort of thing. So
basically, it's not all just sitting on the shelves behind us collecting dust. Some of it does get put to good use.
Yep.
In your opinion, do you think that buying a G-Sync monitor justifies the price increase? And that is very much a Tim question.
Yeah, I think it depends what you're sort of comparing G-Sync to. If you've got like a G-Sync monitor and a pretty similar or identical FreeSync monitor, you don't care about adaptive sync, the FreeSync monitor is just clearly better value because it's like $200 cheaper usually. But if you do want adaptive sync, you're kind of stuck because if you have an NVIDIA GPU, you need to buy a G-Sync monitor. If you're on AMD, you need to buy FreeSync. So from that sense, it's kind of like you have no real option. But some G-Sync monitors are also exclusive, so I guess there's maybe some reason to buy that if you've got AMD. But I think if you're wondering about whether you should buy an adaptive sync monitor at all, for example, you've got an NVIDIA GPU, thinking of buying a G-Sync monitor, or whether you just will be fine with FreeSync. Really, if you're playing at like 80 or 100 FPS or higher, you're not going to get all that much out of adaptive sync.
That's
so like
a
FreeSync 1080p 144Hz monitor on an NVIDIA system will be almost just as good as a G-Sync monitor, provided you're running at those sort of high frame rates. So it just depends what you're after. And if you're on a budget, I still think FreeSync does offer something for people that have NVIDIA GPUs.
FreeSync certainly makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. So. This question apparently is for me. Do you think hot swappable PCIe will come to laptops to solve the Thunderbolt 3 issue for eGPUs? So maybe you guys saw my video a couple of days ago on why I don't think eGPUs are all that good, mostly because of Thunderbolt 3. I'm not sure they'll come up with like a dedicated PCIe port because that won't be super useful for other things. Thunderbolt 3 doubles up as USB-C, so it's kind of useful for attaching displays and other USB drives and all that sort of thing. But I just think a next-gen Thunderbolt will hopefully solve some of those problems. So that's really where it stands.
Fingers crossed for that.
All right, this question comes from YouTube. Do you see yourselves, Steve and Tim, doing YouTube/tech journalism until you retire, or would you want to move on to something new? If so, what would it be?
Okay, so first part of that question. Well, yeah, I've actually thought about this a few times, and I don't know, but I think I could probably see myself doing this right up well into my senior years, be a senior citizen playing with new tech. I don't know. It's kind of a weird one because it's definitely something you could do. It's not like it's not like something that's labor intensive. So yeah, I'd like to keep doing it as long as we can, as long as I'm still having fun with it, which I very much am at the moment.
Yeah, same here, really.
Yep. If I wasn't doing it, something I would like to do something that I couldn't do as a senior citizen, and that would be sort of hands-on stuff. Like I really like renovating and doing that kind of thing. So I'd probably go into like property sort of investment, renovating houses, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I enjoy building and doing all that.
Yeah, I'd probably become an engineer. I mean, I have a master's degree in engineering, so if I didn't do this, I'd probably use that degree. So yeah.
Okay, next question. What was the first GPU you ever purchased, or the first graphics card? For me,
much older than my one, I'm guessing.
We don't need to worry about when. They didn't ask when. For me, it was a Creative Labs. So I don't know. You guys are probably still familiar with Creative. They do a lot of audio products, Bluetooth speakers, sound cards, but they used to do graphics cards. And I had a Voodoo Banshee 16 megabyte AGP. And yeah, I used to benchmark it with 3D Mark 99, if you guys recall the 3D Mark joke from my GTX 2080 joke video. But yeah, anyway, I loved that thing. It was really cool. I don't actually recall right off the top of my head what games I played on it. But I do remember when benchmarking at 3D Mark 99, my best friend at the time, he had the exact same computer. We built them together. But he could only get the PCI version of the Banshee, and it was 1 point lower in 3D Mark. I always beat him by 1 point because I had the AGP model. So I don't know if it was actually 1 point faster or for some reason it just assigned an extra point because you had the AGP version. I don't know. Maybe someone knows something about that weird ancient software. But yeah, always 1 point faster, exactly 1 point, no matter what the scores were. So
yeah. I had to look up and sort of remember the first one that I bought, but I'm fairly confident it was an ATI Radeon X 1900. So that's from 2005.
Yeah, I reviewed that.
And that was to upgrade. We had like my family had a pre-built PC, and I wanted to play Star Wars Battlefront 2, the original one, when that came out. It's really annoying that there's two games called Star Wars Battlefront 2, but whatever. I really wanted to play that game. Our PC couldn't play it, so I went out, got the Radeon X 1900, chucked it in, and away I went playing that game. It was really sort of the first PC gaming sort of thing I did.
And then a computer nerd was born.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, next question. This is one Tim picked, so hopefully you can explain this one to me. Do you think we will ever use a different contact method for CPUs, like more surface area or different pad shapes, etc.? So I don't think this is the mounting method for the CPU. It's like, are we talking...
Like the IHS, I would have thought. Like,
is it the IHS or what we put on the IHS? Yeah, I suppose it's the IHS.
Yeah, like they had the contact between your cooler and the CPU itself.
Okay, well... okay, that being the case, just quickly think of this. Not really, I suppose, because it really comes down to the die size on the CPU. And that's sort of the problem with CPUs getting smaller and smaller, is that you have a really small point that's pumping out tons of heat, and you've got to try and dissipate that as quickly as possible. So the heat spreader serves quite a few different purposes, really. It primarily probably protects the CPU, really, but it obviously spreads the heat, as the name heat spreader suggests. But yeah, I haven't thought about this one too much, but I don't think so.
It seems fine as it is, I would have thought. Yeah.
Well, they're kind of purpose-built anyway, so in the case of Threadripper, they're massive because they have to be, because there's 4 dies spread out, whereas in the case of like Coffee Lake, they're really small because there's one little die in the middle.
Okay, here we go. Another longer question. I'm just curious, it seemed 2 years ago the i5 6600K was what most tech tubers would suggest is the premier gaming CPU. So why isn't the 8350K or the 8600K getting the same treatment? Has core and thread utilization changed enough to warrant this, or was it bad advice then and bad advice now?
It's none of those things, really. It wasn't bad advice then because there was no alternative. I mean, I suppose you could have bought a Core i7, but in terms of value, just getting hyperthreading tacked on didn't really warrant that additional cost. The 8350K is poor value in my opinion because of the reasons I covered in my top 5 worst CPUs video. Basically, it's the price. It's just not a good CPU at the price because we now have better CPUs for a similar price. So that's the main reason there. And then as for the Core i5 8600K, I did recently name that as the best value high-end gaming CPU. So it's pretty good.
Yep.
I was under the impression that most people were recommending the 8600K. It's got 6 cores that clock 5 gigahertz. It's a weapon, really. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that CPU. It's really good. But yeah, games are starting to use more threads now. I think the biggest reason why we're no longer raving about quad cores is because we have faster CPUs with 6 cores. Well, not necessarily fast. We have CPUs that are as fast but have more cores, and they're affordable. So they're not $1,000 anymore. So that's the main reason. And Ryzen has been a big push towards that. So
yep.
Okay, next question. Opinion on starting mobile phone reviews. So this will be one for Tim. Like a lot of different Android phones and stuff, I did really appreciate your S9 benchmarks. So again...
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed those benchmarks, but yeah, it's something we looked at doing, but we're a bit busy doing all the other stuff we have to cover, really. It's really only battery life as well that matters when it comes to benchmarking. So Yeah, something we'll continue to sort of look into a little bit, but probably not a topic that we're going to be doing too much on.
Yeah, you might touch on it, but it won't be regular content, as you say.
Yep.
All right, next question. Stop playing with your phone, Tim. Okay. The next question is, what's the game you've played the most? Well, as I sort of spoke about earlier or alluded to earlier, StarCraft 2, I've invested an embarrassing amount of time. But that game's been out for a long time and I've played it over many years. But that's definitely the game I've played the most. And what about you?
Yeah, like I said, I don't really stick to one game and tend to play it, just stick to that and play it forever. I just play a variety of games, really, like to experience a lot of different things. I do play multiplayer games a fair bit, so I guess maybe back in the Xbox 360 era when I had Call of Duty Black Ops, I played that, got to about 5th Prestige with my mate, so that took a fair bit of effort to get up to that, so that's probably the game I played the most, but yeah, just play lots of stuff, really. How do you manage to compare benchmark performance with so many different computer parts? Is it a trade secret or are you guys just level 12 wizards?
Okay, well, promise not to tell Steve from Gamers Nexus this. We don't want to help him out any more than we have to. But I would say it's a lot of coffee, late nights, and an unhealthy addiction to benchmarking. So, sorry about that, car. None of those things Steve would be aware of.
All right, this is a question from Thomas on YouTube. What is done with all the sample products that you test after you test them? Also, will you ever do a fan meetup? People would show up. Well, it's good to know.
Well, firstly, thank you for the vote of confidence, Thomas. We haven't really ever discussed a fan meetup. Didn't realise that was a thing that you guys would attend to, but maybe that is something we could do. We've got PAX later in the year, so we'll probably run into a few guys there and
PAX Australia, that is, in
PAX
Melbourne.
Australia, yeah. Yep. So we'd be more than happy to talk to anyone that wants to talk to us. As for the samples, hang on a minute. I think I know what he's on to here. Very, very interesting 2 questions to ask in the one question. So you want to meet up, and then you want to know what we do with our samples. Okay, I think I'm on to you, Thomas. But seriously, pretty much the samples, the important things we keep, like, Tim has a lot of stuff here you can see on display. He's got his gaming boxes up the top and he'll use them to test. They'll pretty much sit there now till you get the next generation of gaming boxes and you'll compare them. So a lot of the stuff we just keep around. I've got so many graphics cards that we use for comparing to new ones and when we do throwbacks. And it's great when you guys say, hey, Steve, I want to know what this Haswell Core i3 compares to this. And I've got that CPU and I can test it. So yeah, a lot of retesting. Of course, there's some stuff we don't know that sort of gets palmed off here and there to friends and family and stuff like that. Fan meetups.
All right, so this question comes from our Discord channel. You can get access to that through our Patreon page. And one of our most prolific members, you'd have to say, Sal Kagan, has asked us where you guys think things are going in CPU, GPU, and software/games in 2019 based on the trends and the current state of things in all of those areas. Okay.
He always asks the hard ones. It really is hard to say. Historically, the development on the game side's been pretty slow, but then it's hard to know whether we should blame game developers because things on the CPU front haven't changed for almost a decade. So it's really hard to know what to expect there now that things have got moving. I don't know whether the game developers will be quick to start updating the engines and making new engines that take advantage of things like 8-core Ryzen processors, or whether they'll still remain a bit conservative because they also have to make these games work for everyone. So yeah, it's really hard to say whether I think 2019 is probably, it was 2019, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a bit too early to see any major changes, but hopefully we start to see better utilization of these, 6 and 8 core CPUs, and at least beyond 2019, I hope that we start to see this pick up at a bit of a quicker pace. So that'd be very exciting.
Yeah, I think for CPU and GPUs specifically, where are those going to go in 2019? I mean, it's probably pretty similar to what we saw this year. I don't think there'll be any revolutionary changes that'll be coming out. It'll be the usual stuff, moving to a new node, 7 nanometer will be ready around then, adding more cores, clocking them higher. That's always usually what they're trying to do. So I think we'll see similar stuff in 2019 in that path. Yeah,
hopefully it's a decent step. Yeah. And then they can continue on from there as they always do. But yeah, if anything, it'll just be exciting for benchmarking and gaming. Okay, next question. This is a good one. With these new 4K 144Hz HDR monitors being released, how long do you think it will take to have affordable GPUs that can play games at that resolution with those refresh rates at ultra quality settings.
Oh, 4K 144 hertz ultra settings. That's still a long way off for even modern flagship cards, like the top end $1,000 GPUs. Really can't do that now, so it'll be a couple of generations before the top end cards will be able to do that. And then for affordable cards, probably like a long way into the future. And even then, like, games get more intensive to run over time. So, you know, it might always be just the top end cards that do 4K 144 hertz, you know, unless you're playing Fortnite or something. Yeah. It's going to be very difficult without having really high-end hardware for many, many years.
Yeah, as Tim says, 60 hertz is a bit of a struggle with the modern games at 4K. We're not really, I don't think we're in a resolution race where we're trying to keep pushing the boundaries of resolution, because you can really make games look significantly better at 1440p. So, yeah, it's nice to have that option there, but yeah, no time soon.
All right, so final question for the Q&A. If it's not trade secrets, could you tell us a bit about how you benchmark, even if it's just the things that aren't trade secrets? I'm thinking about what programs you use and how you extract the numbers afterwards, how you decide on settings for each game if it's not just using the presets, and do you actually game or use scripts for a controlled run, that sort of thing. So I think, you know, most of the stuff isn't actually like a trade secret. It's just industry standard practices and lots of hard work. I think mostly for gaming benchmarks, we use like Fraps, OCAT, and PresentMon time to time. For game captures, and then it's basically just Excel for crunching all the numbers and making the graphs. For settings, you know, you would have seen that we mostly stick to presets because most gamers sort of just use presets, and then we just sort of choose presets appropriate for the hardware, go into the games, play them, you know, loop a section of the game. Tend to, you know, if there's a canned benchmark, we might use it depending on how representative of the real game it is. But yeah, I think that's basically it.
Yeah, you could really spend a lot of time answering that one in detail, but I think Tim's covered it pretty well. And things like presets work well. I know a lot of people don't like us using presets for various reasons. Some games it doesn't make sense and we tweak them a little bit if there's a silly setting in there that kind of wrecks things. But the presets just make it easier to, not just for us to load the settings in and make sure it's all, you know, apples to apples. Because even when we load a preset, we sort of go through and check the advanced settings and make sure they're all okay. But it's just easier for you guys to know exactly what settings we're using. If we're using the Ultra preset and you set the Ultra preset, it's the same conditions. You don't have to go through 30 settings to make sure everything's lined up.
Yep, I think that pretty much covers it. All right, and that's it for this month's Q&A. Plenty of questions that we answered in this particular one. Don't forget to go back and check out part 1 of the Q&A if you missed that, and do all the good stuff like subscribing to this channel and liking the video. Consider supporting us on Patreon, where you can ask us questions anytime you like in our Discord chat. And I guess, Steve, we'll catch you guys right in the next one.
See you next time.